and start the video. All right, so we have more than half the class who showed late, but whatever. So this is the it's not really off topic, but this is a question from Joyce, right? Do you see my screen at all? Oh, not yet. All right, so let's go here. And as you can see, I will show you the code here. Sometimes I use socket, right? And in the lab, sometimes I use IO, I think. For example, here I use IO. IO here is, I'm sorry that I use IO here. That makes you confused, but because I was lazy and I prefer calling it IO. It should be WebSocket. Well, it doesn't matter what it is, but basically it's what the name. The name is like, it can be anything, but right here for this project, when I wrote it, I actually import it as an IO. Like for example, I import it as like this. I will show you the code. So I import sockets as I import IO from util socket, and that's why I can use IO like so. Well, it's the same. Whatever the name you use it's the same constant here. It's the same object here. So that's why I'm sorry that I make you confused, right? So I'm going to change back to socket. All right. So that's just a name. And for the backend side, IO is usually used for, so now it's different. This is IO and this is socket, right? So IO here is a library, the library here, right? The application that we it is create a WebSocket server. So it's kind of like a server. And IO here means the whole WebSocket, like there are many connections in there. And socket here is like represent a single connection, right? So socket represent the connection between the server and a single client, right? As you can see here. So that's the difference between IO and socket. But on the front end here, we always use IO. We always use socket because it's only represent one single connection to the server, right? So one client have one connection to the server. But on the server side, we can have one connection here that connect to all the clients. So that's why we have IO and socket. Cool. Uh, so now if you take a look at the lab here, sometime I say IO on the front end. I think if you pay attention on front end, I always call it IO, right? Yeah, I always call it IO because I imported it as IO. Mm, yeah, I always call it IO because I imported it as IO. Okay. Sorry for the confusion, but you need to understand that because people will call them differently. Someone will call it bullshit, like some bullshit, but on it's okay as long as it works. Right. So let's move on to where was it? The login, right? Where were we? We actually done this. We miraculously finished milestone 3, I think. So now we need to finish login. Okay. So where am I? So on the front end here, uh, oh, so here, so, yeah, is it like this? Yeah. So we send the username to the backend, and the backend will send back a response. You can call this one a response or callback. It doesn't matter really. Let's call it response. Okay, make more sense. On the backend side, Go to server, and all right. So username is not part of the command function. Yeah, sorry, we uh, like it's different from the client side and the backend side. There's a little bit different. Which one? Okay, so on the backend side, we have both of them the other way around. So this is the data that we receive from the front end username here, right? And we also have a response here. This is kind of like a response. Uh, you can name it like this, or just keep it callback. So now I'm gonna check. I'm gonna console log. I don't know if this works. Yes, I'm gonna console log the username to make sure everything works fine, right? I'm save it. I have Chun Chun next to me. Right. Let me. We don't need this anymore. Khóa. Uh, what it is? Bad request. So you have no idea what it is, right? So we don't have any. Do we have any login? I'm gonna clear and then refresh again. Khóa. Okay. I think the login works. So now go back to your server and check. Okay, Khóa is here. That means on the front end, this function does work, right? It sends the username to the backend, and on the backend you can receive khóa. Okay, now let's send something back to the client. I'm gonna say cv return. Uh, Actually, you don't need to return, but just to cv, and then you send something to the front end. Say, okay, true. This is kind of like status, or you can do status. It's okay. Anything you want. And here's the data I want to return. For example, I want to return on the front end, we set state the user and response data here, right? So I'm gonna send an object. This object represents the user object. So I'm gonna say the name is Khoa here, right? It's a username. And what's wrong with this? Okay, true. And this is an object. No. Data. Okay. Data is an object. And then you dot data. So now the user will be an object that contain one field, one properties, and that property is name. And then here you can pass the whole user here, and the whole user object here will go into your header. And inside header you have props dot user and prop dot user dot name. So I expect to see khóa on the header. So now if you go here, as you can see khóa here, right? So our login event actually work. But now we want to do more than that. We want to, I received some, okay. We want to do more than that. We want to save the data, the user to our database, right? Sorry, here. So now we have to work a lot. There are a lot of work to do inside our backend. Okay, I'm gonna delete this console log. It's not necessary here. I'm gonna delete this, and this one just for now, just coming out that. Okay, for login we can use try and catch block. We try and we catch. If there's any error, just like how we usually do, we can return callback. And in here we can send an object. Okay, it's false. So that means there's something wrong. Respond with something wrong. It's not okay. And then you can come here. You can tell the error is error.message, right? So now we have the error part. So we have a lot to do here. First, we need a function we just to check if the username exists in our database, especially in our DB, especially in our user model, right? Our user collection. And then if there is that user, we return that user here. Okay. There is there's a user, we return that user. Basically, we want to return callback, and we will have status. I'm gonna copy it here and uncomment name. We don't need name here. We're gonna use user here, right? So if everything is right, we're gonna return the user object to the client. Why don't we return status anymore? Uh, re- Response.status is something from Express, right? It's not socket IO. Socket IO, we have to define the response ourselves. There's no such thing as response. So, right. So we need a function to check if the username exists in our database, right? If it doesn't exist, so this function will also handle that thing. If not, right, we will, this function also will create a new user, right, in user model. I think the face is here, lock you guys, right? So if the new user, we create a new user for the client, right, and then return the same object. So let's do that. You can do everything in here, but that's gonna take a lot of space in your function here. So let's try to use some class. This one is gonna be fun. So I'm gonna create another folder. Say I'm gonna say YouTube. Right? In this YouTube, I'm gonna create a. You can name anything you want. In the lab, I call it server, so I'm gonna call it server as well here to avoid confusions. So now you have two server, but this server is actually from the YouTube, so you don't. It doesn't really matter. This server is inside the root folder, and this one inside the YouTube. It doesn't matter that much. So in here, I'm going to create a class. Can say server. So I'm going to create a class, and inside that class, I'm going to have a constructor. Basically, this constructor will receive the arguments. For example, when you create a new instance of the class, for example, if you do call server like this, equal new server, right? Remember, we usually do this, right? And in here, we can give it arguments. For example, I'm going to like ID here. So here you will receive the ID props ID. And if you have another props like name, so you're gonna have another name, props name, or you can pass in an object, right? An object is okay. An object is okay. So basically, you pass in the arguments here, and this server will return some method. You will have a set or get method that will return this one for you. But right now, just forget, just don't mind. We will do something similar to this later. So in constructor, right now we don't have anything, so just leave it empty. Okay. So now I'm gonna define the method here. So let's say this function is gonna be login, right? I'm gonna call it login, and I'm gonna open two windows here so that you can see easier. So let's define the first method, static login. So this is how we define a method inside our class, just like React, right? Remember React, class-based component? We do the same thing, but we don't have static. So now we have static. And let me see. So when you log in, the reason why I use static here because I want to call this method on the class itself. I don't want to call it on the instance. I want to call it on the class, right? And then we want to call it. We're gonna use to pass in the socket ID. I don't see the question. I don't see the question. Actually, there's no question. There's no question. we are trying to define a function or method. Basically, method is function, right? And this function is gonna like log in the user, right? Log in the user. And actually, when we log in, actually we check the user if it's inside the database or not, right? If it's inside it, we return the user, the corresponding user. If it doesn't exist, we're gonna create a user, the kind of like register a new user. So I'm gonna say this is login function, and this login function is gonna use socket ID is gonna pass in socket ID here, and the username and socket ID. I think, yeah, the username, and here we have username and socket ID. Username we got it from here, right? And the socket ID is from socket here dot ID. I will explain why we need socket dot ID in here. So basically, if you take a look, if you really remember the model here, so here I missed one key. Oh God! So it should be token or socket ID. Let's say token is going to be a string. Okay. Token. Let's go back and change something here in your model, user model token, and it's a string. Save. So basically, we want to give the user here a token every time he connects to our database, to our server. So I'm gonna find con user equal await. So if you want to use await, you have to use async here. Con user equal await, and you want to find the user find by one or find something. I think find one, and you find one with what? With the username. The name is the username, right? So basically, I want to use this username here to find the user in my user model. And here I have to import it. Const user equal to require. Where is it? We inside util, so we have to go up one level, and then we can go into models, right? And then inside model we have user. Cool. So user here is defined, and we find one with the name here, right? So now we're gonna check if there is no user, right? If there is no user, we're gonna create a user, and we're gonna do user equal await create, oh, like this, user await equal await user create, right? And then so now we either have this user or this user, right? Cool. I don't think we should cons here. Let's say let. Don't use cons. It's gonna break because you reassign, right? So if then we attack no, we attack the token as well. We are token equal to the socket ID, right? This one is going to be a string, and we have token. We are a new user with a token here, right? Token. We attack the socket ID to the to token field. If there is a user, so we assign user.token equal socket ID. So either way, we will have user.token equal to this one. And then, so here I think we should save the user first. Await. So because we modify the user.token, so we need to save it back to the database. Then last but not least, we return. So here I'm going to return new. Let's say you can just return the user. It's okay. Right. So we return the user. So this function class.login server, capital server .login will return a user for us. That's the whole purpose. I'm going to save. And here you have to export module.export. equal server. Right, cool. So we export the server, and then I'm gonna import it here. Const server equal to require. Uh, I will answer that after this. Utils, and then you hit server. Okay, so import it, and then I will call it down here. But let me answer Joris first. So his question is: socket ID is kind of like similar to object ID in Mongoose. Basically, they are ID. So it's yes and no. They are ID, and when you say ID, it has to be unique, right? Generated automatically. If you mean that, yes, yes. It's like every time a client or browser connect to your server, the socket IO package here, the library here. Shit, I cannot swap. The library here, the socket here, it will create a unique ID, a unique string, and that string will be your ID on the backend side, right? Cool. So that's how the server understand who's connecting, and when we respond something, we send some data back. It understand who we are sending the data to. Okay, so this function gonna return the user object, and in here I'm gonna say const user equal to await. I use await because this method is async method. Server dot login, and when we log in, we need to log in with the username as well as the socket ID. Okay, makes sense. So I'm gonna delete this line. Ew. And now I'm gonna return this return. Okay, true, and data is user. Right. Uh, format everything, format document, and then that's it. That's it. View toggle work graph. Okay. So let's see if our function here work, right? Something wrong here. Away is only valid, right? I forgot I seen. Save. No more complaints. Let's actually log in. We can, all right. So right now, as you can see here, sorry, as you can see here, I no longer hard code the name, right? I no longer hard code the name khóa. So I'm gonna refresh the page, and then say I'm logged in with khóa. So khóa is here, right? So this khóa, perfect, cool. But right now I see khóa is capital, and I don't want that at all. I don't want that. I don't want capital khóa. So in user here, you can do, I think you can do two lowercase, right? Do you remember the syntax for that? And you can do lowercase here as well, two lowercase, yes, and two lowercase here. And I forgot the field, the property to use two lowercase here, but doesn't matter. I'm gonna log in again with khóa, as you can see here. So now I have khóa here. If we take a look at our database, I expect we to see two documents. Yeah, two lowercase. True. Thank you, Joris. So if you refresh the database here, you see the collection user, right? Click on that, and you see two documents. The first one is capital khóa. The second one is the lowercase khóa, right? And they all have tokens, and tokens here is the ID for WebSocket, for the socket, right? So this is the ID for the socket. Cool. Right. And oh, right now I don't know why we need token though. I think there will be some usage later. But let me go back to VS Code and then add one more to lowercase true, to lowercase true. Thank you, Joris. Cool. So now we successfully log in. Right, next step, I forgot. Next step, we're gonna do something like we log in, successfully log in. Yes. So yeah, ignore this right now. Ignore this one. We're gonna do it later. So why do we have as username here? All right. So the way I do it here on React, inside React, is kind of like there's a little bit different from what I'm doing here because I structure the component differently. For example, here I put the name, the username, and the rooms in one component. In one component, right? As you can see here, they are one component. But if you take a look at my code here, not this. I have two different components. Right? The rooms that contain all the rooms, and the header contain the name or the user object, right? So that's why it's a little different. I call as username on application here, but in the lab, I actually call it on the sidebar. So that's why you see the code is a little bit different, but you need to understand that the difference, right? Don't blindly copy. Don't blindly copy. Just you have to understand the code and to use it, right? So now next step, we're gonna join the room. So we have a user. We can see the list of rooms. So now we're gonna join the room. So where should I comment on the step there? Let's see. I'm gonna comment them all in the server here, right? So here we finish login. We also finish see all the rooms, right? Now next step, we're gonna log in, join the rooms, join a room. Okay. All right, it's half it's half an hour. So let's take 5 minute break. 5 minute break, right? I try to break it down small stuff. So now if you have time, you can like during the break you can think ahead on how to join the room, right? Or if you can, just look at the lab. There will be 7 steps, and they are very complicated. I would say just joining a single rooms, like you have to work on 7 steps. I will show you here. 7 step here. Right. Right. just just to join a room, you have to finish 7 step, 6 or 7 step, right? Blah. And here actually all the code, but I will explain how we use it. They are just method inside the server right here. If you can see here, we use all the method inside the class server here. Cool. So it take like 5 minute break and read each step here, step by step. They are very important. And then I will come back and walk you through. Okay. And also, if you have question, ask later. So now, take a break. 5 minutes. See you guys.